Frank Appel, CEO of Deutsche Post DHL, and I just wanted to say thank you, Steffi, for this short promotion of our supplement in this weekend edition of Frankfurter Allgemeine. And as much as I like paper also, of course, this thing is online too, for sure. It's digital all the time with Frankfurter Allgemeine. I'm the editor-in-chief in charge of digital product of FAZ, and in my old job, being a company editor of our paper, I happen to know Frank Appel for, I guess, since you became CEO with Deutsche Post, which was around 10 years ago. No, it's the 11th year, and I can't remember any year like last year for you. I guess it was the worst so far, the most challenging. What's your take on 2008?
No, we had some challenges this last year for sure, but when I got into the office, that was much more demanding. It was actually February 2008. We had a bank at that time. We had significant problems in one region of the world, and being a new CEO, pretty young still. That was really demanding. The year ended terrifically because we sold our bank 2 days before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and that's probably the reason why I'm still around somehow.
Right. But of course, your shareholders remember the last year also, so the challenges you are facing, they are connected with a changing world, with digitalization, new competitors. How would you describe the main challenge you have to face now and within the next 3 to 5 years within Deutsche Post DHL?
I think for any company, and we survived already 3 industrial revolutions because our company is 528 years old. So
quite a while.
When I talk to my kids, once in a while they say, letters will disappear. I said, we survive the telephone, we survive the fax machine, and we will survive the email. They don't email any longer, they just send messages around. They say, we send messages to our grandparents. This is one they use. So we have survived. What I think is important for large companies like ours with a big business, you have to remain focused on your core business. Excellence in execution is important. At the same time, you have to reinvent yourself in certain areas. And digitalization is a tremendous opportunity for our business. In one of our divisions, where we deliver mail and parcels, we are beneficiary and under threat at the same time.
Right, and in that particular business, one of your, or maybe your biggest customer is maybe becoming your biggest competitor also, Amazon. So how do you deal with that?
So first of all, that is an important customer and will remain an important customer. I think the only right for existence is always that you are the best in your industry. If you have the best service quality, you always have a right. And customers like Amazon were saying, we are the most customer-centric, definitely want to have the best last-mile delivery. And as long as you have that, you have a right of existence. And beyond that, there are still a lot of players outside of their ecosystem, and you have to serve them in the best possible way on a global scale. And I have seen, you asked me about last year. Last year was a challenging year, but if you do that for so long time, you never can anything for granted. And there will be always new challenges you have not anticipated, and then you have to react. The important thing is that you do something about it and just don't continue. One of my colleagues always says, hope is not a strategy.
If you want to be or stay the best in the industry, and of course many other postal services in different countries are way worse than you, Germans tend to overlook that. But let's for the sake of the argument, let's say you're really good and want to stay there or get even better. You are one of the biggest employers in Germany, and you have all these employees that have to learn more, that need to be qualified for a world that is changing fast. How do you achieve this learning effect with your employees?
Yeah, this is actually a very tricky one because, of course, we can't train our people in the normal paid term. The margins we have doesn't afford that to give them training. On the other side, new technology is not so complex as many people think. If you can book a flight online and order your stuff e-commerce or use apps and whatsoever, some games are more complex than to program a bot. So if you can play games like some young Koreans can do very efficiently, they of course can learn to program a bot, which is, I think, not so difficult. And we tried that recently as a senior team ourselves, and it is not so complex. You don't have to be an IT nerd to do that. So what you have to do is you have to start first with a mindset. People have to understand that they have to learn new things. And the earlier they begin to understand that this is the need, the earlier they are willing to really learn new things. But that's the key issue. If they are not prepared to say, I have to learn new things, then it's very difficult. Then you can give them formal training, but they will not pick it up.
Would you slap a percentage on the number of employees that gets this message and a percentage that still has to adapt to this training world?
So I think, changes, we don't like change. Being a neuroscientist from education, our brain is organized in a way that we don't like change. Habits are a good way to reduce the energy consumption of the brain, and therefore nobody likes change in the first place. So I would say currently probably have 10–15% of the whole workforce is ready to go that. It's very difficult to judge, but I think that's still a long way to go.
Okay. So I've just read while traveling from Frankfurt to Munich that drivers are in high demand to deliver parcels to our homes. The numbers go into the 100,000 when it comes to Europe and the US combined. On the other hand, those drivers are challenged by autonomous trucks delivering the packages maybe in 20 years or so. So this doesn't seem to be an attractive job to take, right? How do you tackle that problem?
So if you are currently not a truck driver, so if you are an old truck driver, then this is good news actually that we get autonomous driving, because the likelihood that you get it to the retirement age is significantly higher. Healthy is significantly higher. If you are young, regardless what kind of profession you take, there is no guarantee that your job is still around in 10 or 15 years. So
may even
therefore, what's the difference?
Apply to journalists, right?
Maybe even journalists. If you think about artificial intelligence, our press releases can easily be converted in a factual article. What is still more challenging is, breaking news, to write breaking news out of that, because you have to. But actually, for your industry, it's good news, artificial intelligence, because you can refocus on what you originally wanted to do, to investigate what is going on instead of just copy and paste what other people say.
So what you're saying is, if no matter what job you choose, if you don't get better in it all the time, you're lost anyway. If you are a parcel truck driver or a journalist. Yeah,
so because what is definitely not possible any longer, that you can stay with a company in the same job for 50 years. So we still have careers who have worked for our company 50 years, about 400 every year. That will not happen again. So, but this is true for any profession. So, and I think that's important, that you train the youth and create the mindset that they say, what you do now is good, but you have to have an open mind, you have to be adaptive to change, you have to learn new things on the journey, and we have to change our education system. At the moment, we have an education system which lasts until 18, 19, then you go to university, and then it's over, and then you get some training on the job. That will be not efficient and effective in the future. So that needs to be changed. You have to do that more on a regular basis, and we have to think about that, how we twist our education system, that we maybe start already working with 16, but then do interim steps through our whole career where we really get even a really normal education.
But the country is not prepared for that one, right?
No.
I mean, we don't even manage to get 5 billion euros into our educational system as it is, because the federal government and the states are at odds about that. So that would have to be financed by companies, I guess, right?
I think in education, what countries are spending on education is relatively small in comparison to other stuff. So I think money is not a problem. It's more the mindset as well of a country, how much money you want to spend there. There are countries like Singapore who are still thinking much more ahead of the curve already than other countries. So, but I have no doubt it will come, and new technology will help to facilitate
massive online courses.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit to the global scale. When you look at global trade and listen to Donald Trump and look into their talks with the Chinese and what may be happening with European and US trade relations, it's not too much reason to cater to the theme of DLD, which is about optimism. So as a global logistics company that's highly dependent on those interactions between countries, are you afraid of protectionism all around, or don't you in reality even feel it?
So first of all, I'm not afraid of that protectionism will be all over the place. We, even if we do in our own research, we have a study which is called DHL Connectedness Index, and what we see is that the world has been most connected in 2017. Figures for 2008 are not available yet. I'm not afraid of that. There is no country who ever succeeded with protectionism. I don't know any. Actually, it is still continuing. Many countries are opening their borders, and consumers are very flexible. If they don't buy from one country, they will change to another country. Customers are already moving production from out of China to other Asian countries because that would avoid duties on these products. So, it's important that you, as a supplier for companies, as a logistics provider, have to be flexible. You have to be flexible to adapt to that. And actually, we are following our customers as fast as possible, and that's the answer to that. But I think the globalization will continue in a very meaningful way going forward, without a doubt. Financial market crisis had significantly more impact on the globalization than the current political discussion about protectionism.
So free trade and the free flow of goods is a better answer to the challenges we face through digitalization when it comes to the employment and future employment situation than a universal basic income. So the answer is growth and free trade, and not necessarily a universal basic income.
Yeah, so if you look into what is digitalization all about, it is improving productivity. And if you look into the history, there are only two reasons which drives economic growth. And economic growth is the best idea anyway for getting more people out of poverty. And these are population growth. The planet doesn't need more people. And the second is productivity improvement. These are the only driver really create economic value. So digitalization is improving productivity. And if you look into the statistic in the last decade or 2 decades, productivity was not gained so much by really optimizing processes. It's much more gained by moving production from one region to Asia. So now with digitalization, that creates tremendous opportunity. Our industry, if you go to our warehouses around the world, they look still very similar than 20 years or 50 years ago. They will change now massively. Technology becomes so cheap that we can do stuff which was not
all around.
Yeah, there was no business case. So robots, collaborative robots, Wi-Fi to optimize your flow in the warehouse. You can't imagine. We are in one facility. We do the advent calendar is now filled instead of by humans. It's filled by a robot. That's tremendously more efficient. It's 24 hours, 7 days instead of 2 shifts or whatsoever. It's much cheaper and more productive. And that creates value for the population at the end of the day. And that is coming now.
Coming to the end of our conversation already, 20 minutes are moving fast. We jump to one particular project within Deutsche Post DHL. You've mentioned those warehouses and how they are changing. Maybe you have 1 or 2 other projects in mind you're really proud of when it comes to how the company changes and how you would like to see it in the future.
Yeah, so these are all small ideas. We have a lot of stuff. Maybe what I'm proud about is that our what we call Effibot, that's a French producer who helps us to that this device follows, can follow couriers or your warehouse clerks to pick and pack. That made it in one of these games, which is on these ESL. I'm not a big gamer, but I have seen that. So, and this is DHL branded, and that, of course, is something. If you really make it to that level, you are, adapting yourself as a company. If you see that these young people who are playing not soccer any longer in a stadium, but playing these video games, and you see a DHL Effibot in that tournament, that makes you really proud. And we are using them in pilot applications already in our warehouses, and this is just one example. But these are all small things. You will not see any major impact on our P&L in the next 5 years. But then, as always, it starts slow, and then it accelerates, and then we will see a massive change. And that, therefore, to answer your question, I can't give you very simple.
So there are lots. Right.
So we have one, which is not digitalization, it's a street scooter, it's an electric van, where we have almost now produced 10,000 there on the street, and we are delivering our parcels with electric vehicles or electric vans, and we are very proud of that, of course.
The street scooter is there are street scooter fans in here, but it's a good example on how tricky it is to scale that after it has reached a certain level, right? So if you want to get this thing really huge, you are at a crossroads right now.
Yeah, the challenges, and that is typical for large corporations, that is really a challenge. Our investors are saying, I want to see constant growth of your P&L or your EBIT. We want to have a constant dividend. And it's great that you have new ideas, but if you scale them and they cost a lot, maybe others should do that. And that's a tricky part for anything. So if you wanted to disrupt yourself, the first thing is, that's a good idea, but it should not cost too much. So what we are burning in our street scooter plant is a tiny amount in comparison what other companies are burning or have already burned. If you look into what kind of private equity goes into some of small startups in our industry, and you say, if we would say that we are spending $500 million on something and burn that, people say, listen, better do it somewhere else. And we have a proof of evidence. Street scooter is the only electric vehicle on the street in Europe. And we have not only produced a single one, we have now almost 10,000. And we had already 3 winters survive with these vans. So I think, that's a part of the problem. And that's a challenge as well for you as a senior management, how you balance that. How you balance that you drive innovation on one end, reserve money for that, without compromising too much on your normal existing business. But there's no simple answer to that.
But that's the really interesting thing about this new world we are getting into. Now Deutsche Post DHL is a partner of Ford, which is one of the biggest global car companies, producing together with you guys this street scooter thing. And who would have imagined when you became CEO 11 years ago that this was ever happen? So we'll see what those next years will bring. So we're right on time. Thank you so much. In the audience for listening, and Frank Appel for your time here in Munich. Have a safe trip home. See you in Davos.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.